Hey family, thank you for tuning into Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ika. We're only the strongest roots, see the light, brought to you by Botánica candles and more. And if you haven't had the opportunity, hit that subscribe button. What's up, Phil?
Happy Sunday, everybody, man. It's good to see you. It's good to be here. Good to have everybody here. Don't forget, folks, we have a membership program we would love for you to be a part of. We got extra perks for everybody who joins. That means, extra videos, live shows just for you, discounts on merchandise, you name it. It's really simple. Just hit that button right under this video and you can join our community. So what's going on, man?
Not much, brother. And another note for all viewers, classes are going on. 2 classes. We have our 4-week curriculum as an introduction to Ifa and Orisha, and we also have the Mojuba class. But today we're going to be continuing our Meji series with Baba Ika Meji.
So say that one more time. Ika?
Ika Meji.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So with this one, I love starting with the name, right? Ika is actually the Yoruba word for hand or finger, right? So it's saying this is the Ifa of 2 hands. And when we notice the concepts within Ifa and how powerful and important the hands are in the daily Bawalao or Orisha activities, it's a pretty important Odu. It speaks of when we didn't have 2 hands, right? We had one, but one needs another. So divination was performed, sacrifice was performed, bones were applied, metamorphosis and evolution, and just like that, we ended up having 2. And it's also why a lot of the organs that we have in the body are 2, and it makes reference to the Mejis in general, where sometimes one is just not enough. And then apart from that, making reference to the act of divination, how it always requires 2 hands, whether it's with Iking, and even the shell to a certain degree, but more focusing on Iking, right? But Baba Ika Meji was an Odu that I had met a couple brothers that had it. It was always pretty mysterious. I mean, Ika makes reference being with the bones and whatnot to Oggun quite a bit. Ancestors, spirituality. To be frank with you, it also makes a huge reference on witchcraft. This is where los brujos malévolos first manifested, or the evil witch doctors and the shamans. So it's an Odu that's very powerful and it can be very fierce, depending how people live it. But definitely if you have this one initiation, it's one that you have to stimulate quite a bit, because unfortunately Ika Meji is usually trying to be victimized by witchcraft or due to somebody else's envy, them doing something to you. So you have to be active and learn and study and prepare yourself. But this is actually where pregnancy cravings first manifested, Phil.
Wait, really?
Yeah. When, these wonderful women are going to give us children, those 9 months of really wild, wild requests.
Did Erica have any crazy cravings like pickles and ice cream?
Well, I'll say this. My wife really enjoys expensive chocolate. So, wherever that chocolate was, if it was in Dubai, I went to Dubai to get it.
Oh, you got the grass chocolate.
Yeah, the grass chocolate. All right. Yeah, but no, this is the Ifa of the pregnancy cravings, and why men, when we don't fulfill them, we suffer the consequences, such as styes. But in all seriousness, Orunmila here had accomplished the monumental goal of impregnating his wife, right? So he was ecstatic. So he said, this is going to be great. It's going to be smooth. I got a job. I'm paying the bills. The wife is able to stay home and just nurture our children. Life is good. But, she started getting cravings. And one of the things that she asked for was pretty impossible. She said, I'm craving peanuts. Now, this is far before the time of Walgreens and Planters. This was actually a pretty exclusive ingredient. So exclusive, the only person that was growing it was God Almighty, or Olodumare, where he had his personal peanut farm. And to steal from it was punishable by death. Orunmila tried to reason with his wife, and he said, hey, honey, I know you want peanuts, but, I can get killed for that. And, of course, she didn't care. She said, either you get my peanuts or I'm leaving you. He's like, you're going to leave me when you got my baby in you? She's like, yeah, I'm out of here. And he took her very seriously because the Iamio Shoronga were overstimulating her. So he went on this mission impossible to go steal some peanuts. And he was pretty successful. He got in, he got quite a few, and he was going to leave, but someone saw him. And that someone was the goat, or Obuko. And the goat said, wow, Big 𝗶𝗶𝗍𝗶, diviner, baby on the way, Orunmila, stealing peanuts from Olodumare's garden. I won't tell anybody. And Orunmila knew he had a big issue on his hands. And the goat obviously couldn't stay quiet, because till this day, goats don't stay quiet. Probably the most rambunctious of the animals as far as vocally, as opposed to the ram, who doesn't say anything at all. He just, hits you. So the goat started telling everybody, he saw Orunmila stealing peanuts from Olodumare's garden. And word started getting back to Olodumare, where the goat was subpoenaed along with Orunmila to the palace to show evidence and stake claim. So Orunmila was really worried because the goat really had seen him stealing. Orumila's wife didn't care, by the way. She's like, thank you for the peanuts. You figure it out. And he immediately performed divination where Baba Ika Meji was revealed, where Ifa said that he needed to perform sacrifice to Eshu, but it didn't identify what. So he went running to Eshu and said, hey, Ifa says you're my guy. This is my situation. What are we going to do? And Eshu was like, hey, pro bono, once we get the goat, we'll square away there. So Eshu, on some gangsta, actually kidnapped the goat. And they brought him into Olodumare's palace with his mouth tied up. And Olodumare said, what's going on here? And Eshu said, no, we've caught this guy lying before. He's come trying to do witchcraft in your sacred hall and make accusations. We found out that he was the real thief. He's got to die. And Olodumare, so over-enthused about what was going on, said, yeah, kill him. And Orunmila pulled out the knife and, sacrificed the goat. And Eshu was actually eating the goat while it happened. So that was fulfilling Eshu's. It was wild, bro. It's like a movie. It's like a scene out of what was it, Reservoir Dogs, or what was the other one, Pulp Fiction?
Yeah,
with Travolta and
Samuel, yeah.
It was gangsta. So, and just like that, Orunmila not only sacrificed the goat and fulfilled his debt with Eshu and was able to get away with grand theft, he actually started dancing with the goat's head. Because Olodumare was like, make an example out of him. And Orunmila actually started dancing some rumba with the goat's head. Now, obviously, PETA wouldn't like this story at all. No. But, there's actually a huge spiritual significance here. Because it says in the Odu Baba Ika Meji, Orunmila danced with the heads of his enemies, right? Oof. So that's why whenever we sacrifice a four-legged animal,
hold on, you said that like way too smooth. Like, come on.
Yeah, he danced with the heads of his enemies.
Jeez. Okay.
And that's why every time a babalawo sacrifices a four-legged animal, we dance the head. Which is the famous verse, Adore, adore, ado, ao, afari malerio, and so on and so forth. I won't give that one away because that's a good song.
Yeah, join the membership program.
Yeah, sure. And that's why we place the head on top of the Orisha as a commemoration of who we defeated. So Orunmila went back home and said, hey, honey, I got off the charge. She's like, I don't care. Get me more peanuts. So he basically stole peanuts until, his child was born successfully. So if we interpret Ifa, a lot of things were born here. The peanut became a very important offering for Orunmila here. So anybody that has this Odu offering peanuts to the Orishas that you have is very key. It was always interesting to me because the peanut actually plays a big role in Yoruba culture. When I would go and visit my teacher, 𝗏𝗏𝗍, every time I would come through the door, she would give me water and peanuts. And I'd be like, Mama, they're a great source of protein and fat, but, what's the deal? She's like, we just offer this, it's like, it's just commonplace. So when I actually studied Baba Ika Meji, I realized, like, oh my God, look at the significance, And in some versions, Olodumare opened up the peanuts for everybody at that point because he saw the benefits and how he could commercialize them. Where Orunmila was like, hey, if you let me run the farm for you, I'll make you some money. And, the sale and traffic of peanuts actually occurred here. But, apart from that, it makes reference to pregnancy and the effects that estrogen and the 𝗀𝗏𝗍 have on the women, and how it's very important to fulfill because a lot of people be like, oh my God, she's asking for the impossible. Well, she's actually asking for everything the brain's telling her to ask for. If a woman asks for something, they've done studies showing that it's because subconsciously the brain is letting her know where her deficiencies may come from so she can compensate for them. That's why they ask for these wild things that they usually wouldn't eat, because the baby is draining them in a way that they've never felt. So don't blame the woman, blame the baby. God bless the baby. You know, and this sign as well, the dancing of the heads. So that's where it actually comes from. And they say that the only person that actually ever danced the head was Orunmila. So, you know, we get into this debate sometimes, oh, how come the 𝗵𝗷𝗶𝗶 can do this and I can't do that? In reality, everything that seems like a capability or posterity of the 𝗵𝗷𝗶𝗶 was actually a punishment. Orunmila was forced to dance with the head of his enemies. I mean, he hated the goat. But needless to say, he really wasn't trying to go that far. But Olodumare was like, make an example out of him. Prove to me that you are not guilty. And he's like, all right, I'll do the two-step with it. And he danced with the head. So for anybody that's not 𝗵𝗷𝗶𝗶, technically you don't have to dance the head. Baba Ika Meji said that was only a necessity for the 𝗵𝗷𝗶𝗶s. And that's why usually the 𝗵𝗷𝗶𝗶s are the ones contracted to perform the offering and sacrifice of the Orisha process. But if you're not a 𝗵𝗷𝗶𝗶, you don't have to dance the head, because the only one who ever did that was Orunmila. This also makes reference as to why goats are almost human-like.
That's true.
I've seen many, I've eaten many. If you ever look at a goat, especially when you're about to sacrifice it, most people won't ever be in that circumstance, it's almost human-like. And then the way it baas is almost like it's talking. And that's all born in Ika Meji, where it says that every goat that's sacrificed or every animal that's sacrificed is a human that needs to reincarnate, but has to go through this very uncomfortable process based on mistakes that they made in the past life. So that's why, you know, it is a human. So you got to be careful. You can't mistreat it neither, because when it gets to heaven, it'll say, hey, you know, Joseph, you know, he killed me, but, you know, he did it in the most respectful way possible. He sacrificed me in the most humane way possible. We don't mistreat animals, right? So all of those concepts actually manifested here for the first time. Baba Ika Meji speaks a lot about the Orisha Eshu, right? And Eshu here was the Orisha that helped Baba Ika Meji the most, because Baba Ika Meji at one point actually occupied the 16th space of the Mejis, right? So instead of being whatever number he is here, what is he, like number 10, I think, something like that, 11? I don't know. But on the latter end, he wanted to, you know, better his stars, to say. So he visited 𝗵𝗷𝗶𝗶s in heaven so he could receive divination. And they told him he needed to perform sacrifice with a goat to Eshu to be able to, you know, move up, you know, and not be the last guy. So he performed the sacrifice, and there's a couple versions to the story, but one of them was that Olodumare had actually organized the symposium of all the Mayis to see what their positions were ultimately going to be, or who could divine, and all of these different things. And Baba Ika Meji showed up, all prayed up, and he did extremely well. And based on his efforts and sacrifice, and Eshu putting the word in Olodumare's ear, like, hey, this guy is really incredible. You know, he works hard, he's knowledgeable, you know, he's young, but he knows his stuff. And Olodumare said, I don't like him at number 16. We're going to move him up to, I think it was number 11, right?
Yeah.
And all the other Meis were pretty mad because they all went down a spot, especially Ofun Mei. He hated him because he's like, because of this guy, now I'm last. But Ika Meji is really a testament to efforts as to how things can go versus how your destiny says they should go. Because one thing is to have a destiny, but remember that there's always free will. There's always things we could do to alleviate it. Now, most people will look and be like, well, 16 to 12, you know, did he do that well? I mean, that's 25% better, ultimately. So, you know, and he's not complaining because anything's better than being last, you know. Shout out to Oggun. We'll get to him soon. But Eshu was a huge theme here. And it's a huge theme for all of us because it's like I always said, and I even said in the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗍 video, Eshu has to be your best friend. As long as you attend to Eshu, things won't get worse. So this is a perfect example of that, where Ika Meji was like, this is who I need to be focusing on and attending to, and Eshu completely changed his life and his situation. So huge themes there as well. Efforts, study, and Eshu. So once again, continuing with the theme of Eshu, Eshu here wanted to be a king, But in the land that he lived, specifically in Yoruba land, there weren't really any kingships left based on what the story was saying. So he actually was left without a crown. So he performed divination, and Ika Meji was revealed, where Ifa said he needed to perform sacrifice with a cow. And when he did that, he was informed to put the cow's head on his, right? And to leave and to go wherever his legs would take him with the cow head on. So they say that when he arrived in the next land, they immediately all bowed to him. And he was like, well, what's the meaning of this? They said, we just had divination done, and it said that the next guy that came in here with a bull head on his head was to be king. And he was like, that's amazing, because that's what I've been trying to accomplish. And they got to know him. He was installed. He did wonderful things. And he actually turned the head into his crown. And the land that he actually was meant to govern was the land of the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏, which is, you know, a clan of people and tribe of people that we've spoken about in other videos who live adjacent to the Yoruba people or sometimes intermingled. Eshu here became the king of the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏 people, which is the same place Shango stole the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 from, if anybody's trying to make some correlations.
Okay.
But, you know, I'm not sure. I haven't really delved into this concept now, but I do know that the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏 people are known as the cow slaughterers, right? Because they have this huge festival based on their beliefs where they sacrifice a lot of beef, you know, and then everybody eats, and there's ceremonial and spiritual religious connotations to it. But ironically, at least in Ika Meji, it says that the king of the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏, at least in antiquity, would wear the bull's head, and the horns were a commemoration of that sacrifice. And obviously it's a very regal thing, you know, at least the horns, you know, to the point where in this Odu, there is an Eshu that's mounted that actually has bull horns coming from his head. So if anybody has this Odu, it's not a bad idea to mount it. You know, it's where Eshu became king. So Eshu's a big guy here.
Yeah.
Also in my random study, another interesting point here, if I'm not mistaken, is the word Ika in ancient Egyptian means soul. So it is interesting because Ika Meji means two souls then, kind of like based on, you know, the Egyptian interpretation. And people are always trying to find those links back to Egypt. But in my humble opinion, the Yorubas were around even before the Egyptians, God bless them. You know, but all of those things are present as well. And it makes reference because Ika Meji was an energy or a sign that would go back and forth between heaven and earth pretty frequently. So it would make a lot of sense there as well, especially based on the spirituality. Ika Meji was actually seen as a really good guy, even though he had the potential to be very destructive based on his knowledge of witchcraft. He, for the most part, tried to do good things and do right by people. Divination was performed. He was trying to see how his life was going to go. He was told to perform sacrifice to Eshu again with the famous goat. And he was told to have 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 because his character was going to be tested. So Olodumare wanted to see how his children were behaving and if they were upholding the precepts of Ifa and actually saving humanity like they swore to do before they got all of the wealth from being the only 16 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏s on earth. And they say that he visited the eldest son, or the leader, at the point, which was 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏. And when they visited 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏 in disguise, Olodumare said, hey, I need your help. I'm going through this. I don't have money right now, but I will, but this, but that. And 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏 was like, I'm too busy. And he slammed the door in his face. And they say that every other Meji was visited and everyone else denied him. But the only one that opened the door and actually listened and attended to him was Baba Ika Meji. So obviously after this, you know, Olodumare realized that only one of his sons was fulfilling what he had promised. And at that point, he revealed himself and rewarded Baba Ika Meji with certain courtesies and abilities that the others did not receive. And the one who actually was most annoyed and perturbed by this was Baba 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏, where he tried to complain and make excuses and things like that. And Olodumare said, you know, you're one of the wealthiest men on earth and you can't even take time to do some charity. So Ika Meji was always commended for that. So this Odu says that we don't have to do everything for free. But every now and again, we have to have empathy and understand not everybody can pay or can fulfill their obligations at the moment. They need some assistance. And at the end of the day, the Babalawo should not be turning people away. So Ika Meji was a fine and shining example of that, where the others had a lot to learn. But it also says that you need to be very careful, because in this Odu, you don't know who you're interacting with. Sometimes we might be interacting with an Orisha that we think is just, a random passerby, when it's actually a whole god. So Ifa says treat everybody with respect and move as if there's always eyes on you, because you never really know who's watching or observing your behavior. So it's better to live honestly and ethically so that you never have to answer for any misbehavior, right?
Yeah. Santa Claus is always watching.
Absolutely, man. Put a coal. Baba Ika Meji speaks heavily of the Orisha Oggun in multiple patakis here. But one of the more important ones is where Ogun's tools were born. The 7 tools of Oggun were born here. And you can purchase those at Botánica Candles and More if you're going to receive the warriors. God bless you.
There you go.
But in this sign, Oggun was completely impoverished. He had no aspirations in life. He really didn't know what he was going to do. He had no education. He was just trying to find a way to be able to sustain himself. So one day, he came across a farm, and he was a big, robust guy. He was strong. He was capable in that manner. And he offered his services to the owner, saying that he could clean up the farm and cause it to start producing, capital and animals and plants and all these different things if he would just give him the opportunity, a place to sleep, a place to stay, and a square meal a day. And the owner said, show me something. So Oggun started utilizing the tools and whatnot that the person had after learning how to use them, and started doing all the things he said he was going to do. He planted crops, they grew and they sold. He raised animals, they grew and they sold. Plants, everything, any type of way he could make money off of the farm, he did. And it got to the point where he was actually able to buy his indentured freedom. When he did that, or was about to, the owner called him in and said, I'd like to speak to you. And he explained that he was Orunmila, right? And apart from that, he was a babalawo, and he was really impressed with Ogun's work ethic and his aptitude and his capabilities, and wanted to initiate him as a man of Ifa. And he did that off the strength, actually, because Oggun had made him so much money, he didn't even know what to do with it. So Oggun, when he did Ifa, he actually came with the Odu of Baba Ika Meji. And he dedicated his life to Orunmila and Orunmila's teachings. They took care of each other. And, he looked at Orunmila as a father, and he loved him very much because he gave him an opportunity that no one else had ever thought of. So to the point where Orunmila looked at Oggun as such a son and such a disciple that when he transitioned, he left Oggun everything. The property, all the deities. Like Oggun at that point was a completely eligible made man. And he always thanked Orunmila. So that's actually the first part of a 2-part story. But in this Odu, it says once again, effort. In every Meji or in every Odu, there's always a theme or a thread, as I like to say. And Ika Meji is really a testament to the amount of effort that we put into things is what we're going to get, regardless of how the process begins. I mean, if you look here, Ika Meji was number 16. He could have gave up, gotten emotional, and accepted his fate. He didn't do that. He worked as hard as he could to get the most that he could, and he did. The same thing with Oggun. Oggun was a transient. Oggun was homeless. But he didn't just say, I'm going to pick up bad habits and just live on the side of the road for the rest of my life. I got to do something. So with entrepreneurial spirit and really ethical work habits, he was able to actually become the owner. He did things the right way. He was industrious. He educated himself. All of these same messages for Baba Ika Meji apply. He had loyalty. He had accountability. And, he was also very intelligent, when he was able to stimulate his brain the right way. Where this Odu says that, this can be replicated. If you work as hard as you can. I mean, what's the saying, Phil? I worked my whole life to become an overnight success.
Yep, that's exactly what they're saying is, yeah.
And, it's with anything. You could look at that physician and be like, man, beautiful house, beautiful car, this, that, and the third. But, look at his 20 years of study, Or you could look at a YouTube channel and be like, man, that 𝗃𝗏𝗏, might have been studying Ifa for 20 years just to get to the point he's at. Or anybody that's been able to accomplish anything worthy of note. Ika Meji says that it is not an overnight thing. Are you willing to go through the sweat, toil, and labor to be able to accomplish something that other people want to emulate and imitate and have a positive effect on them? So Oggun was able to accomplish all of this, you know, and with his Odu. Now, mind you, Oggun now was a property owner. He was an upstanding individual in the community. He had disciples. He had people that, you know, followed him and learned from him. And he had everything except love, right? So divination was performed again. He came with his Odu, Baba Ika Meji, where Ifa told him to perform sacrifice to the ocean, right? Or to take his ebo to the ocean. And when he did, he looked into the distance and he actually saw a boat sinking, right? Not good. But even more so, he saw a woman in it. So most people look at Oggun and they're like, man, he couldn't swim for nothing. Oggun was actually a great swimmer. Now, when you read Odus like Ogunda and Yaya, when the rust happened and whatnot, that's a specific case. But Oggun was quite a swimmer. Remember, he was a hunter ultimately by trade and many other Odus.
Who's the better hunter, him or 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏?
Neither,
𝘃𝗶𝗏, right?
No. I can't say that neither. Because when you look at Ogunda Masa, 𝘃𝗶𝗏𝗏 with his bow and arrow would shoot down every deer or every animal. But he didn't have the machete or the strength to get through the foliage to be able to consume the carcass. So I got to give it to him 50-50. No one was better there because 𝘃𝗶𝗏𝗏 could be like, yeah, I can kill any animal, but Oggun was like, can you get to it? Because part of hunting, half of hunting is killing the animal. The other half is getting to the animal, you know? Because let's say you kill that thing at 50 yards. How do you find it? Like Oggun's tracking skills, that's why Oggun is, you know, assimilated or, you know, associated with the dog. Because no matter what, a hunter needs a dog, and the Oggun was the dog. You know what I'm saying? He was the one who helped find it, you know? So it's also in the Odu 𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗶𝗍.
They'd be a good team.
No, they were an amazing team to the point where they still live together. I mean, Ogunda Masa says that till this day, united we stand. So Oggun and 𝘃𝗶𝗏𝗏 actually live in the same pot. So back to the Hand of Ifa video, when you receive your Oggun pot, 𝘃𝗶𝗏𝗏's in there. It's really both of theirs. It's 50-50 down the middle. So Oggun jumps in the water, and he saves the woman, and he takes her to shore. He resuscitates her, right? And, you know, she was completely appalled by what happened. She lost consciousness, and she's like, who are you? My name's Oggun. What's your name? My name is Yemaya, right? And he was like, no, I just saw you in distress, so I thought I'd help you. And she's like, what are you doing later? And he's like, well, honestly, I was just doing some spiritual stuff. I'm really not doing much. I was actually going to spend some time by the beach. And she's like, well, you know, let's spend some time, but after that, you know, let's go back to my place. Now, my place wasn't her own personal apartment or condo. She actually lived in a castle because she was a princess. And, you know, Yemaya really didn't say nothing until the moment when she introduced Oggun to her father, the king, and she explained the story and all these different things. And, you know, the king looked at her and said, what do you want to do? She said, I'd like to marry this man. And he said, well, you have my blessing. He saved your life. I can't say nothing to the contrary. And Oggun was like, I'm looking for a wife anyway. So once again, Oggun goes from being a completely impoverished guy, a complete homeless guy, to now being next in line for the kingdom. You know? And, you know, he loved Yemaya. To be frank with you, that was a perfect combination. Oggun and Yemaya's union was perfect because they were both very hardworking people. They had similar goals. She wasn't a very dainty woman. Like, she was a very hardy woman. Like, she was with a good time, and she was just a woman's woman, you know, and Oggun was a man's man. So they really complemented each other very well, and they groomed each other, and Oggun became king. And Yemaya was his lady, you know, and he just was very thankful to Orunmila. You know, he still, even after all of that, looked to the sky and thanked his godfather and said, you know, look how beautiful life has been for me, just doing the right thing. So, you know, Oggun was faithful to Ifa, and because of it, he found the love of his life. He reached a status socially that he could have never dreamed, you know, and it was all from doing the right thing. And this is one of those Odus where really Oggun takes the forefront because we love 𝘃𝗍𝗏, but there's no story like this with 𝘃𝗍𝗏. 𝘃𝗍𝗏 didn't necessarily have to work for anything he got. He was born royalty.
Yep, he silver spoon, 𝘃𝗍𝗏.
Yeah, straight up. He was the apple of 𝗃𝗏𝗏's eye. So he was already groomed from a young age to be regal. But one of the things he had to learn later on that most people or most children who are, you know, fortunate don't, was ethics, you know, and hard work and certain concepts that he was completely foreign to. So when he actually became king, he's like, I have to wake up and actually put on a crown every day. And they were like, yeah, there's people, you know, lifting, you know, tons of wood. You know, would you rather do that? And he's like, no, but I really don't want to do anything. So Shango had to learn all that work ethic, as opposed to Oggun, who got it from the ground up, you know? So this is where really Oggun, once again, and I stand by it, is the best example of masculinity within Ifa besides Orunmila, you know, because Oggun learned it from Orunmila. Orunmila taught him how to be a gentleman. He taught him how to interact, converse, you know, be a man of trade, you know, be self-sufficient and independent, and exemplify all of those qualities that ultimately made him attractive to Yemaya. So Oggun here is just another example, along with the Odu, of you get what you put in, and as hard as you work is as, you know, as much as you'll enjoy.
I think Oggun's probably one of my favorite.
Oggun's the man. Oggun's the absolute man. And that's why I look at my Odu and it makes sense why I have such an affinity for him. Like I do all of them. But Oggun was 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏's best friend in heaven. They actually had babies, you know, at the same time, where Oggun conceived at the same time Orunmila did, and they were godfather to each other's sons, and they were really family. You know what I'm saying? So Oggun, I've been able to survive and win many wars with that Orisha. So, you know, always give thanks. But yeah, that was kind of Oggun's epic here, you know, where he really, you know, went from farmer to king. So really beautiful concept as well. Baba Ika Meji. Now, this Odu was where a very popular and common cleaning first manifested. Now, it's very common amongst, you know, people with stomach issues or even women that are pregnant, right? This is where the cleansing of the stomach with the pumpkin first manifested. Okay. Now, most people do it by habit now, but in this Odu is actually where it first manifested. There are aspects of it that manifest in Baba Ika Meji as well, but the full one was here, right? So there's an Odu, or there's a pataki in this Odu that speaks of when there was two neighbors, right? And they were women. And one of the women was very rude. She was just very nasty. She was just very toxic. Like, she had no empathy whatsoever and would mistreat her neighbor every day. Like, you know, say slurs to her, insult her, use profanity. Just really horrible, right? So one day, after another onslaught of rudeness, the nice neighbor took 5 pumpkins, like little ones, and threw them in her stomach. Like, it went through her skin into her stomach. And the rude neighbor was like, yo, what just happened? And the woman actually transformed. The woman was Oshun. And she said, you know, I've been testing your character. You're my daughter. And I've been testing your character. And all you've known how to do is insult people around here, be rude, you know, be evil. And, you know, no one punishes my children but me. So unless you get on the right track very quickly, you're going to die from cancer. Which is the metaphor there, because the pumpkin was actually, you know, a tumor or a fibroma or a cyst or fibroid or, you know, what have you. So what did the woman do? She went running to the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏, you know, which she had never done. Where some people even say there's versions of this story where she was punished because she was rude to Orunla and Oshun didn't want to tolerate it. Neither here nor there, she went running to the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏. And when divination was performed, Ika Meji was revealed, where it says you're in deep, deep, deep trouble. And Ifa said that she needed to perform a bowl with a pumpkin. And she's like, well, there's no pumpkins here now. 5 of them are in my stomach killing me, and I have to go searching for one now. And he said, well, you need that pumpkin because we got to cleanse your stomach with it. And she was like, okay, well, if I don't die on the way there, I'll bring it back. And if you look at the story, it was just this epic tale of the woman really going through horrible things to be able to salvage herself, right? She ended up finding it due to a sacrifice that she did to Eshu, and Eshu facilitated it, where she was able to come back and cleanse her stomach and really remove all of that had been placed in her. And she completely turned her life around at that point. She realized that, you know, just because we go through pain doesn't mean we have to make other people feel our pain. She was very bitter because she hadn't found a partner or been able to keep one. She hadn't been able to procreate. All the goals that she had, she didn't have good character or iwa in the face of them. And because of it, in her mistreatment, Oshun chose to teach her the hardest of lessons, where if she just would have been patient, she would have had all the things she was griping over to begin with. So when we look at this story, this is actually one of the Odus where cancer first metastasized throughout the body, right? The pumpkin is always and has been a metaphor for the human body within Ifa. You know, it has an exterior, it has entrails, right? And it's a metaphor and is utilized a lot to replace humans with the fruit. In this case, though, it was a metaphor for the tumor, where anyone in this Odu has to be very careful with tumors that have to do with the stomach or even the regenerative part of their body, you know, the private parts, or reproductive system, better said, because this is, you know, any of the masses that grow within the body manifested here for the first time, like the feminine ones that I mentioned, or any type of cancer that can really spread from the stomach or the core, and wherever it hits first. So, and this Odu is the famous pumpkin cleansing, right, where it was used to kill in the same way it was used to save. So, you know, if you're 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗃 Meji, it's another big ingredient to offer pumpkin to the various orishas that you have, because it was a life-saving ingredient. I wouldn't eat it too much, just like I wouldn't eat the peanut too much. You know, in moderation is fine, but, you know, if you notice that you're using it a lot to cleanse yourself and whatnot, that's not the time to eat it. But Ifa says in this Odu, it provides even solutions for things like cancer and any of these really intense, phenomenal health scares that we go through as human beings. But it also says that we can also bring these things upon us negatively if we carry out a negative behavior. You know, the people that stress the most, the people that yell the most, the people that, you know, just take on these very intense changes in emotion and behavior are usually the ones who suffer the most from a health standpoint. When you look at that 100-year-old guy, you know, about 70 years ago, he said, man, I'm really not going to stress nothing. And it's an art. But Ika Meji says, do not stress. Do not allow yourself to get to the point where, you know, you're stressing so much that you're killing yourself. You know, don't overwork yourself and pursue money to the point where you're killing yourself. Because there's a lot of people that are supposedly successful that are really digging their own graves.
Yeah.
You know, so very important as well to maintain a good behavior and a good balance and a good outlook. Because, you know, all that cortisol and things that we induce into our blood with the stress and the negativity, I mean, you know, it'll catch up with you, you know. That's why negative people usually have negative ends.
Wow.
So Ika Meji speaks of all those things.
That's a good quote. Negative people have negative ends.
Yeah. And it's just, that's just experience has shown me that. Now, you got some that escape, you know, what can you do? But for the most part, the people that stress the most or flip out the most or, you know, are constantly, you know, trying to, you know, critique others or what have you, you know, Oshun doesn't like that at all. She punishes because she's tolerant. You know, she understands everybody's different and everybody has a different path to happiness. But when we take it upon ourselves to try to denigrate others to make ourselves feel better, she takes personal offense with that because she didn't like it when people did it to her. So
I get it.
This Odu of Baba Ika Meji has a story that speaks of when Orunmila went to war with the snake.
Okay.
And the snake was a very gossipy animal. He would like to start problems between one deity and the next. And he actually went and gossiped to the Orisha Oggun that Orunmila was speaking negatively and ill about him. Orunmila had the habit of reading himself anyway, where Ifa told him to perform sacrifice with Ika Meji to the Orisha Oggun, ironically. So when Orunmila showed up to Oggun's house with the offering, Oggun was perplexed because he thought that maybe Orunmila was trying to get one over on him or let his guard down. And Orunmila gave him an offering that he wouldn't have given unless he was very serious, and it was a goat. So when Oggun ate the goat, they ate it together. You know, Oggun had a moment of honesty with Orunla and said, I thought you came here to kill me. And Orunla said, I would never dare. We're family. And he said, yeah, but the problem is the snake came here, told me that you're doing witchcraft to me and you're talking about me, and I believed him. But, you know, through your actions right now, I can't imagine how any of this would benefit you if you were trying to hurt me. And Orunmila said, well, how about this? To show my loyalty and my honesty, why don't we go hunt him down together? And Oggun was like, I love that. So somehow the Orisha Osain was involved in this as well. I'm not sure if he was the one influencing the snake or he actually helped set the trap, but he's worth a mention. But ultimately, they caught the snake, where at the last moment, the snake was trying to be like, no, Orunla, no, Oggun, no this, no that. And Oggun said, the hell with this, and he cut off the head, right? And they consumed the snake together. They ate it together. It was a sign of their victory. But Orunmila did the same thing he did to the goat. He danced with the head. And, it reiterates the theme. Orunmila danced with the head of his enemies, So this Odu says that we must avoid gossip. We must avoid speaking out of turn. We must avoid critiquing people unnecessarily. In this Odu, it cost the snake his life, trying to pit two people against each other that really had no qualms, So this Odu says be careful with agitators. Be careful with people who constantly have a message about somebody else, because more than likely they're lying and trying to get a reaction out of you that benefits them and not you. Orunmila here was honest. He was loyal, just like Oggun was. You have to be careful in this Odu with people trying to pollute one's mind, etc., because it's an Odu of manipulation, right? In this Odu, unfortunately, Ika Meji was always in war. He was always dealing with witchcraft. He was always dealing with people trying to, pit him against the people that, he was most aligned with. So this Odu says you can't believe everything you hear or even partially what you see, because it's an Odu of a lot of deception, the same way the snake tried to deceive Orunmila. So,
wow.
Baba Ika Meji.
All right, man.
That's all.
You tell me. I know
I got one more.
Let's go.
I got one more, just to bring it full circle.
All right. Yeah, because, you're bringing it full circle, but that's how you, with the heads of your enemies.
Yeah, right?
I was like, oh, all right.
I dance a good head.
Yeah.
To bring it full circle, Baba Ika Meji speaks a lot about the boat. If you remember in the story with Oggun and Yaya, her boat was sinking. So in this sign, it says, Warami mama yokoda, Warami mama yokoda, ebe hotung, ebe hosi, Odu nyara nyara, adifa funget hewute, Warami mama yokoda, Warami mama yokoda. And what it makes reference to is the boat, which was swaying from right to left and back and forth, and the boat had no stability, right? So the boat went for divination because she was afraid that if things continued the way they did, she was going to sink. Divination was performed. Ika Meji was revealed where Ifa told her to perform sacrifice with iron, right? And through the ebo, the anchor was manifested. And when it was released, it stabilized her at the dock where she was able to maneuver correctly. Now, initially, she didn't like the idea of being controlled or stabilized. But at the same time, she realized there were benefits of it, because to just be floating out there and not have partnership and security wasn't a way for a woman to live. So since then, the boat and the anchor have had a long-lasting marriage and have been inseparable. They say that the boat was Yemaya and Oggun was the anchor made out of iron. So it, reiterates the story of when Oggun saved her from drowning, because in that sign, the boat was going to sink because the waves were having their way with her and she had no one to stabilize her. So this Odu speaks of the importance of partnership, collaboration, love, companionship. We accomplish so much more with the right people than by ourselves. But it's about being around the right people, not just people, And there's a lot of transitions in life. And when you're used to doing everything alone or on your terms, partnerships in any facet can be scary. But when you realize that they're necessary to really scale, it's much easier. So I always thought that was a beautiful story. Be careful in water. And that's Ika Meji, Phil.
Man. You guys who are watching, you guys are getting some treats.
Yeah.
Like, for real. The Meji series is good. We need to make a playlist that's just the Mejis,
yeah.
Yeah, this
sure.
is a reminder for me to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. little water stamp right there.
Yeah. Wow. But, man. Okay. Guess what time it is, brother?
Members, dog.
That's right. All right. If you guys want more Joseph Baba Ifa, it's real simple. Click on that join button. It's right under the video. It gives you access to our membership program that gets you open access, really. We have extra shows, private shows just for members, early releases, discounts on merch, all that jazz. So today we're just going to show love to our supporters here.
Awesome.
These are the ones who have been with you for various times.
Nice.
I think the longest one here that I see on this list so far is 16 months.
Jeez, thank you.
But we've been doing this for 2 years now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more. Just on my end is 16 months for this one. So,
nice.
All right, so let's go. All right, we got Maritza Feliciano.
Thank you, Maritza.
Whitney Bacon.
Okay, great name.
All right, we got V Lala.
Okay.
We got EPJ,
Supporters.
Anna Rodriguez.
Okay, blessings.
We got Yan Yang.
Okay, that's in the
We
running.
got Ashley Torres.
Thank you.
We got Delicia.
Oru.
We got It's Lizzie.
Okay.
And rounding out that one, we got... scroll down. We got Dee Dee's Alchemy.
All right. Shout out to the alchemists.
Oh, that's what that is?
Yeah, like alchemization.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Sweet.
Guys, we appreciate you. Be sure to check out some classes at 𝘃𝗵𝗿𝗲 School. If you're interested in furthering your 𝘃𝗵𝗿𝗃 education, whether it be our 4-week curriculum for an introduction to all things 𝘃𝗵𝗿𝗃, or a step further with the Mojubba class, which is doing wonderfully. Botánica candlesandmore.com is up and running for all your product and service needs. We do ship. If you can't catch us on YouTube, be sure to listen to the podcast on places or apps like Apple and iHeartRadio, Spotify, etc. A big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast. Until next time, guys, see the light.